All right, guys, we're just going to wait just a minute for a few more people to show up. I think, what do we have, like 20, 30 of you, I think, already there. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, Trevor, you can hear me?
I can hear you.
Good, good. It looks like, can everyone else hear Trevor? Just want to make sure that everything is going through proper. If you can, down in the chat window, just let us know if you can hear us. Okay. I know we had an issue that one time where some people were hearing us, some people weren't. All right, that's good. Good to see. Good to see. All right, then we'll get started. We have, I'm sure, other people that will be kind of coming in and out during the whole broadcast. So, anyways, guys.
Good.
So, as always, thank you once again for coming for tea time. I'm sure a lot of you are kind of hanging out with us today, having your tea, maybe your cup of coffee. It's afternoon, so maybe a hard drink, as I always say, whatever it is. But a lot of you in the past have asked to have Trevor back on the show, and that is what's going on here. And as you can see, Trevor's sitting up there in the window next to me. I wanted to bring him on board to get a different perspective. You guys always hear what I think and my point of view, and he is a fellow creative. He is someone that I've done work with. We used to do the Digital Photography Cafe show together for years. And, now I'm doing this on my own, and he's doing a lot of the web stuff. That's his business. But it's great to be able to get multiple perspectives. And that's why you guys are here. All right. I've been talking a lot as of late about the industry kind of in decline, and a lot of you have been agreeing. So it's not only with just us, with the creatives that are having a hard time finding work, so to speak, but also the industry as a whole. The major manufacturers of cameras are having a really hard time. And today we're going to get into a little bit about Nikon and their latest numbers. So before I get into that, let me go and introduce Trevor here. Trevor, what's going on? Tell everyone who you are. So it's, instead of my short story, give us just a little bit more meat on the bones.
Excellent. Yes. Hey, everybody. I am Trevor Current. As Joe said, I am a web developer and designer, kind of by profession. That's what I do now. My background is as a graphic designer and photographer. I've been in the business now for, I hate to say it, but just over 30 years. Starting in 2009, 2010, I kind of made the transition from graphic design and consumer packaging pretty much into all web work. So our client base now ranges anywhere from, corporate clients and associations to, small mom and pop businesses and authors and alike. Of course, we do websites for photographers as well. And if anybody's been following me for a while, you probably know that that's one of the things that we offer. But, as I've been in the industry for so long, and as Joe and I have been doing the photography related stuff for so long, I think we started Digital Photography Cafe, in 2011, I think.
Yeah, think about that.
We did about 250 shows, 250 episodes. We traveled all around the United States to the different photography trade shows and alike, and interviewed manufacturers, interviewed photographers, met with the movers and shakers, the keynote speakers, and things like that at these shows. So we've been in the industry for a while, and we've met a lot of people, and we've dealt with a lot of people. And one thing that I can certainly say, I've been watching Joe's videos too, and the last several videos have been based on earnings, year-to-date earnings for Canon and Sony and some of the other manufacturers, and it all has not been good news. And I have definitely seen the industry change over the last 10 years that we've been doing this stuff. And it's kind of what we want to talk about today, in addition to what's going on with Nikon, which kind of blends nicely into this conversation.
Yeah, so you know what? Let me go and bring up the screen here with the Nikon information. Now, this information comes from Petapixel, but there's a bunch of other ones that have similar info and similar stories that they publish. So I'm going to bring this one up, and hopefully you guys can see it. Yeah, there we go. So as you can see here, this is the Petapixel, their article. And let me just scroll down a little bit here to the highlights. Now, there's a lot of information in here. I really don't want to get into all of it, but just taking a look at some of these numbers is what we want to do. You can see Nikon as a whole reported 5.48 billion in revenue, which represents a 16.6% drop year over year. So that is Nikon as a whole. That includes their lithography, that includes their imaging business, everything. In a whole, they're down, let's call it 17%. Now, their operating profits, now this isn't great. Their operating profits came in at 62 million for 2020 so far. Remember, this is year to date. That's a drop of almost 92%. Guys, that's like if you make $10 normally, right? You make like what, 80 cents or something. All right. So it is absolutely horrendous. I really, looking at that number, I don't know how they're in business. I don't know. They're running on life support, or they're running on whatever they have, the cash in their coffers that are just savings because they're not making anything. Also, it kind of brings it down into just their imaging business. It says their imaging business reports revenue of 2 million, let's call it 2 billion, which represents a drop of 24% compared to last year's results. So that is a major, major reduction there. And then operating profits, which is just crazy. You're looking at a loss of 158 million, So I don't know how these companies are able to sustain at that amount. Now, we've talked about this in the past when it comes to Canon. They also are having a really hard time with it. Same with Sony, same with a lot of the manufacturers. Panasonic, we talked about Olympus, that is literally, they're on death's doorstep. They're really not doing well at all. Hopefully, all of these companies come at the end of this whole COVID thing, by the end of the year, let's say, and they're all still around. Because as we know, it's very important that we have a ton of competition. When you don't have competition, you don't have innovation, and stuff just gets stale, all right? And you don't have all that innovation and new stuff for us to be able to play with, right? All that cool gear. Because we know we're gearheads, the most of us, right? We're always looking at the next best camera because we think that that is going to somehow be the thing that makes us a better photographer. But that all being said, we see this right across the board with all the major manufacturers. It's just abysmal, absolutely abysmal. There's only one manufacturer that, even though they're still doing worse year over year, they're doing the best out of all manufacturers, all camera manufacturers out there, and that is Fujifilm. And as I've said in the past, I think that has a lot to do with, Trevor, I think it has a lot to do with the way they treat their clients, the way they treat their customers, the way they give back more, and they're, instead of constantly taking. And I've made a reference to this one time that, you were able to buy a camera that shot 1080p, and then 2 or 3 months later, with a firmware update, you were all of a sudden able to shoot 4K. In comparison to what Panasonic did, right? Whereas they gave you a little bit of something and then charged you $100 of a lot more. So it's one of those things that, the manufacturers are starting to see this, and they're starting to understand that we have a lot of choices now. It's not like before. We have a lot of choices, and they need to be able to give back, or we're just going to go to someone else. And that's just it. Canon just recently, Trevor, and this is great for you, just recently put together this web utility that allows us, webcam utility that allows us to use, for example, I could use an 80D to do this web thing that we're doing right now on YouTube instead of using a webcam. Right now I'm using the Logitech. So, which is really fantastic. And that's what I think is going to have to happen. So, I mean, as far as with you, Trevor, looking at this, how do you see this?
Well, yeah, I mean, and that kind of goes back to what I was saying in the very beginning. I mean, back in 2010, just for some quick backstory. So 2009, I started a website called currentphotographer.com. Currentphotographer.com was basically a blog where I shared my information, my thoughts, opinions about the photography industry. As being a photographer and working in graphic design all day, it was kind of nice to be able to come home and blog about, something that I really had a passion about. So back then, digital photography was really starting to become a thing. And it was, the 5D Mark II was out, and things were really starting to explode in the space. And over the next several years, 2011, let's say, to 2013, 2014, the space was just popping. It was just so crazy, the amount of stuff that was going on in the industry, the changes, the innovations that were going on, the new products coming on the market, the competition was growing. I mean, the space was crazy. And then, probably about 2015, we started seeing a little bit more leveling. Still a lot going on, but the competition became so great that it was harder for the manufacturers to get through the noise of social media. Again, back, Joe and I both started on Twitter around 2009. And during that time frame, you could get out there, you could meet people, you could engage with people, you could put out content, and people would interact with your content. You had the opportunity of doing that back then, but then it just became so noisy and so much broadcast, and it became harder and harder for companies to get their messages out, and that because of the competition and everything. So I've been seeing a steady decline in the photography space as a profession, let's say, over the last 5 years. We've seen it with the magazines going digital only. We've seen it with the trade shows starting to become less popular, cutting down on the number of days, and increasing the prices to participate because they have to make up for that lack of attendance. Um, I've been seeing this trend, and from a professional standpoint and from a manufacturer standpoint of products and services, it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
This competition has really hurt them. While competition's good for us, it's not good for the manufacturers.
No, I agree 110%. We see it also in the industry when it comes to those conferences that Trevor was talking about that we used to go to and cover, like WPPI and PPE, Photo Plus Expo, and all the rest of them.
Yeah.
Those conferences are really going away. There's not a lot that are left. And the ones that are left, they're seeing numbers that are just abysmal, just horrible,
Yeah.
horrible numbers. And that's prior to this COVID-19. So a lot of people will say, "Oh, yeah, that's what it is. It's the pandemic." No, it is not. It's the industry
No.
as a whole that is currently not, let's say, in a good place. It's just been a
Right.
very difficult time. The last 5 years, Trevor, I mean, you can really see the difference. Now it's not all, gloom and doom because there's a lot of sectors of the industry that still do well, but there's more few and far between. And that's why I've asked you guys in the past, what do you do? What is the thing? What is your side hustle? I think I did a whole video on side hustles, and I gave you a list of all of my side hustles of what
Yeah.
I do. Um, and same thing with you, Trevor. Before we go any further, I want to say anyone that's listening, or if you, let's say, are listening to or watching to a replay of this, even though it is a replay and it's not live, down in the comment area, any questions that you have for me or Trevor, put them down
Yep.
there and we will answer them. Also, if you're live right now, any questions that you have, it doesn't matter what they are, Ask me anything, basically, anything that you want to know. It doesn't have to be on this topic. It could be on anything. This is more of like a hangout chat, just saying hello to all you guys and just seeing where we are and have this discussion. I always like to hear from people that are very diverse from all different parts of the world and, of course, different parts of the creative industry, because
Right.
we're all feeling the exact same pain. It's just slightly different, slightly different. So, like I said, ask any
Yeah.
questions in the comment area or in this chat window, and we will get into them for sure. Anyways, let me get back over to you there.
Yeah, no, that's all absolutely right. And even within the creative industries, we've been seeing a big change. So photography is one space. So the manufacturers are feeling the pain, but the professional photographers themselves are feeling the pain because there's so much competition now. You've got everybody is a photographer now. Everybody with a smartphone can take a decent picture. They're a photographer. They're shooting things, they're posting it to Instagram. That's awesome. That's great. And I don't want to fault anybody for taking advantage of what technology has to offer and giving you the ability to express your creativity. That's amazing. From a professional standpoint, the amount of people coming into the creative spaces because the barriers to entry have been lowered is really hurting the professional space. Um, you know, 20 years ago, I saw this in the design space, as I came out of art school doing everything the old fashioned way, marker comps, painting by hand, airbrushing, developing my own film, my own 35 millimeter film, doing old school stuff. And in the early 90s, the computers, the Mac kicked in, and the software Adobe products started becoming the norm. And now people are using Adobe, they're learning about it, and they're becoming technicians, let's
Right.
say. They're learning software, they're learning how to do things, they're becoming mechanical artists. But then you've got these technicians who really didn't have prior design training, such as I did, who are now selling services as designers, and they are, cutting into, let's say, some of the smaller projects that the companies I work for might have done. But it's different. I mean, you always separate out the cream rises to the top, right? I mean, we always say
Yeah.
that. Your professionals, the one that are truly producing art or truly producing a superior product, you're going to rise to the top. But that doesn't affect or limit the amount of people coming into the industry, all vying for those same projects.
Yeah.
So we've seen it in graphic design. We've seen it in website design. WordPress is a hugely popular platform and has become a platform that pretty much anybody could work with. Now, can you produce at a professional level? Maybe not initially, but sure, you could get there. You could be a great technician. Again, it doesn't mean that you're a designer. It doesn't mean that you're a programmer,
Yeah.
creating
Yeah.
back end stuff. And
Yeah,
obviously
I
the
you
photo
know I
industry.
think, Trevor, what has happened too is it's become easier and easier and easier to do the different creative tasks that we do as a photographer, as a videographer, um, as even a musician. I've talked to a lot of musicians that are having a really hard time with it right now. And we just
Yeah.
did a piece. I think it was last week, Friday or something. And I was talking about how things were just going south for the people that were using Shutterstock, right? So they were spending
Yeah.
all of this time developing, let's call it their brand on Shutterstock, and they were getting paid a flat fee. Let's say they were the cream of the crop, as you say, and they're making 30%. Well, Shutterstock has said, well, yeah, you're the cream of the crop now, but as of June 1st, you're going to now be reduced from 30% to, and that's, let's call it level 4, to level 3 or level 2 or level 1. Wherever you stand as of today, June 1st, that's where you're going to be. And then going forward, as of January 1st, 2021, and going forward after that every single year annually, we're going to reduce you back to level 1, which is 15% commission. And now these are people that have been around literally for 10 plus years, because I think they started in like I think it was 2003, whatever it is, 2003, 2004, whatever. So there's people that have been with them for a really long time. And now they're going to be just kicked back to a very small commission base. And it's like, what do you
Right.
do? What do you do? So what I was saying also is, now that it's become so easy to create, a lot of people just throw a camera on P for professional, as we call it. I joke about it, but they throw it on P, and they take photos at a wedding. They hand them over on, on a pen drive or something, and say, "There you go." And they are underexposed, overexposed. They're blurry. The composition is god awful. And then what happens is, and I've seen it here in the studio, I'll get brides, grooms that will send over a pen drive and say, "Can you make an album? We can afford an album now. Can you make one?" And
Right.
the amount of work to be able to make a quality or a semi-quality album out of this god awful pictures is probably cost them as much as if they hired someone like me to cover a wedding, which I really don't do too much anymore at all, but someone like me, all right? But they
Right.
didn't. They hired someone that literally charged them $600 to do this wedding and just threw the pictures at them at the end, and that's it. That's the end of it.
Yep.
So, but this is happening with everything. A lot of things are like that. It's becoming easier and easier and easier to create, but that doesn't mean that they're creative. All right. Just because that you can take a picture, that doesn't mean that it's a quality picture. And we see that a lot of times. I do a lot of commercial work. My wife, she's a licensed cosmetologist. She does a lot of commercial work. We work together sometimes on ad spots, whatever it is, for TV or whatever. And we notice even in that industry, you'll see people create stuff that goes literally on TV that is garbage, literally garbage. And it's just okay. It's that whole idea that it's good enough. I've done videos just on the whole good enough era and how everyone
Right.
just thinks, they look at stuff and they're like, "Yeah, that's good enough." They take a picture of the iPhone, they check it out, they're like, "Yeah, that's good enough. I'm going to use it for selling my, let's say, property." But come to find out, I do high-end real estate shots in the past, and I'll guarantee people that they will make more money on that real estate, or they won't pay me after using me to do the photos. And I've never lost once. They've always made more. All right.
Right.
So, it's one of those things that you still need a professional. But the problem is the professionals are being pushed out of the market with all of these, people that are buying box cameras and whatnot from Costco. So it's a real
Right.
hard thing for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you
Ron
probably see it all the time with websites, right? Now that you do websites on a daily basis.
I do. I do. So, but it really has not affected my business because of the client base that I work with. As mentioned, I do a lot of work with associations and corporations who are used to hiring professionals and paying professional rates. If I were to try and go hit up mom and pop for a new website at my rates, they would fall over and die. They just
Right.
want to help to do it. They would blow them out of the way. But there are people out there filling those voids. There are people out there that are doing websites really cheap because they can, and they can still make some money. And somebody that's doing it as a weekend warrior, and come home from work and work on a website for the a couple weeks and bang something out and sell it for $500. And they made $500. They had fun doing it, and somebody just got a decent website for $500.
Right.
It's the way the industry is going. Ron actually had a great comment, and Joe, you and I were actually talking about this morning. He said, "What about how manufacturers are actually making things that used to be out of the limits of consumers and only what pros used to only have? The higher end cameras, right? The
Right.
5D Mark II back in the day. Those were out of the limits of your normal consumer, and they were professional grade. They were high quality.
Right.
Now, the manufacturers are making products that are less expensive, but are still great quality and can produce great images. But they did it, as he said in the comments here, they did it for the market share. They did it for the money. There are only just so many people that they can sell 4 or 5,000 and up cameras to.
Right.
That market is very narrow, but the market for that entry level camera is so much larger. you know and the consumer wants what the pro has, but they just can't afford to pay that price. So that's what the manufacturers do. They put in some of the pro features into the lower entry level cameras to give them a little taste, to give them what they want, to hook them in hopes to upgrade them to bigger and better equipment down the road.
Right.
But these companies, they make their money off lenses, right? I mean, we always talk about
100%.
lenses.
100%.
So get them in a body, get them in a little Rebel, right? And you can still pop an EF lens on there. So let them
Absolutely.
buy the glass, upgrade, be able to create great images with these new lenses, and then they'll hit the point and they'll decide, maybe I do want to upgrade to that next 5x camera, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like the R5 is coming out, and we still don't know exactly what the price is going to be on it. They're looking at anywhere from 3,900 to 4,500 US, somewhere right around there. It's a lot of. I haven't done a video on it yet because there's not enough solid information on it. But when that comes out, that's going to be the equivalent to a mirrorless 5D, and I think it's going to really revolutionize stuff. It's going to be a revolution, just like you just said, the Canon EOS 5D Mark II, when it came out and started shooting HD video. It was like, what is this? What is this? How is this even possible? So I really do think that that's going to be a major, major jump positive for Canon, because, Canon has been lethargic, to say the least, for so many years. And I'm a Canon shooter, but guys, I am unbiased as they come. I really don't care. I'm not a fanboy. I don't, display any flag for anyone. So there was I see Aaron had a comment in here. He said, I think the days of being a still only photographers only is over. I make more money doing video work these days. And I completely agree with you. In most cases, yes. But I think that maybe not still is dead as of yet, and video is coming up, which it is. But I think more is the fact that still is dead when it comes to non-professional work. There's still a lot of professional work that needs to be shot, like product work. There was a time when a lot of manufacturers, or a lot of companies, let's say, they would hire in their professional photographer to do their product shots. Then they said, you know what, we're going to bring in a couple of photographers and have them in-house to do this work. And it came to like a full circle now where they just really can't afford those in-house photographers. So they're starting to hire back out for professional work, not the
Right,
semi-professional work. All right.
right.
So I think it is, like you said, the cream is rising to the top. But to your point, video work is very important. And that's why I've said for many years now, the professional photographer needs to be a hybrid. All right. We can no longer just be a photographer that shoots one thing and only does photo. You need to be able to do photo and video, because someone is going to want video. And if you know how to do it, you're going to be able to get that job. If you don't know how to do it, it's going to go somewhere else. I think
Yep.
it is very important. And that being said, you need to be able to edit also. So not only at this point do we need to be able to shoot stills, we need to be able to edit the stills, we need to be able to shoot video, and we need to be able to edit video. So it's like we are now sitting here with at least four hats, actually many more, but let's call it four
Yep.
hats, where we used to be able to have one and be able to make that specific amount of money. So we just need to constantly learn more and more and more to just be in the game, so to speak. So, while the industry is definitely on, let's say, a downswing, there's things that we can do to keep relevant, so to speak, and becoming that hybrid shooter, editor, all right, will definitely go a long way.
Yeah, for sure. Jay Bear commented, he said, "You sound mad because people enjoy photography." Not at all. Not at all. Photography is great, and the more people doing it, the better, right? It's in art form. It allows people to express themselves. It allows people to just capture a moment, to take a snapshot. If it's a snapshot, not a piece of art, who cares? You know what? I have all kinds of snapshots on my iPhone. My iPhone is synced with Amazon Photos, which, by the way, if you don't have, you really should get. And I have all of them being uploaded. And every day I get a notification from Amazon Photos saying, "Hey, you have a memory." And I look at it, and it's a picture of my daughter or my son, and it's from 5 years ago and how little they were. It's just a snapshot. It's not a piece of artwork. I'm not going to blow it up into a poster. I'm probably not even going to print it. But being able to capture that moment in time with a quality photograph from my phone, or even if it was from a small point and shoot camera, right? I mean, I think giving people the ability to create a great image is fantastic. But there's a difference taking a snapshot and making a photo. And that's where the artist comes in. That's where the technician comes in. And this is where, it's been said, a couple different people said it in the comments, but this is where we as creatives need to set ourselves apart from your average person, from the average person that can create the snapshot. Just like you said before, Joe, you've had clients who've gone to the outside and they've gotten mediocre work, or they've had, in-house staff shooting photos with iPads. You know what? That only goes so far. You need, at some point, you realize that, that kind of mediocre is not really good enough. It's not really doing the job. It's not really representing their brand the best that it can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me see. Let's see here. Herrick, I guess his name is. He says, "Do you know if Sony will continue to create new MF medium format sensors?" I've heard that Tony Northrup mentioned it. What are your thoughts? Now, so keep in mind, I don't know what Tony said, because a lot of times I just don't have time to watch that much video that's very similar to what I'm doing. I usually listen to other stuff on YouTube or watch other stuff. But the fact of the matter is, Sony makes a load of money on sensors, and they not only use them for themselves, but they sell them to other manufacturers like Nikon and so on and so forth. And they also sell those sensors to large industry entities for using them for their machine work. All right. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes in their sensor department where they make a ton of money. They make a lot more money, in my personal opinion, on sensors than they do on camera sales. So are they going to continue with medium format? I personally think it would be stupid not to. We know that Fujifilm is crushing it when it comes to the whole medium format game, right? They're just doing such a great job. Now, can Sony just take their sensors, which they already have, right, and do the exact same thing? Absolutely, right? Absolutely. But Sony is one of those companies that they are very smart, okay? They are very smart. And they put their money where it makes the most with that investment. Their ROI has to be up here. They can't just have a return on investment that, let's say, is 5%. They want 500, okay? And if the ROI drops down to a set level, whatever that level is, Sony would just cut it. That's just it. That's the way they are. They don't care. They have no qualms about it. They just nix it. That'll be it. They'll kill the camera. They'll kill the line. They'll kill whatever. It just doesn't matter. It all has to do with ROI. And when it comes to, like I said, sensors, they make a lot of money on sensors. So if medium format really picks up and Fuji just really just not only they're crushing it, obviously, to all the other camera bodies that are medium format digital backs, like for example Hasselblad. Hasselblad will have a camera that's $40,000. Fujifilm will have one that's like $8,000 that will do almost the exact same thing, the same amount of. It's crazy. And these big companies like Hasselblad are feeling the pain of Fujifilm these days. So yes,
Yeah.
I don't think that anything will change with Sony when it comes to sensors. They could nix their entire line of cameras and they'll continue to make sensors because on the broader picture, they're going to make a ton of money with it. So it doesn't matter.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, Karen actually has a great question. She said, or a comment, she said, I've invested 30 years into Nikon. Do you think it is at risk? Do you think the camera companies will merge? So I know, Joe, in one of your videos, you talked about consolidation of product. And I would say that is more likely what would happen. I think they will, like you said, cut out the dead weight, cut out the equipment that is not selling well for them, or merge features into less models to create that high-end pro level and the entry pro level, and that might be it,
Yeah.
and make that entry pro level like a lower price point to get people through the door. I
Yeah,
can't see
absolutely.
Nikon merging with Canon,
No,
because
no.
Nikon has too many other, business components,
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
same with Canon.
And you got to
So I think,
remember, keep in mind. That's a great point, Karen. Keep in mind, these companies are Japanese companies. Japanese companies, they have a certain standard. That's not like an American company. It's a face. Okay, they don't ever want to lose face. So even if they're doing poorly, they will put on a big smile and tell you on how fantastic they're doing. Okay. So it's really important for them to do that. Now, I did do a video about consolidation. I do think that some of these camera manufacturers are going to have to consolidate those lines. So when you have 5, 6, 7 medium for, or let's say full frame mirrorless cameras, when you really don't need that many, it might come a time when we start seeing that consolidation. So instead of having 5 and 6 and 7, you might have 3. You might have an entry level, let's say something right in the middle ground, and then a professional level. And that's it, instead of having so many. The same thing with APS-C, the same thing with all of them, all right, where you don't need so many of the exact same thing. So consolidation would be a really good way for them to be able to save money. Now, I've had some people come at me and say, no, you're completely wrong. You need to put out a lot of cameras so that people will buy something, all right? But the problem that I have with that is the manufacturers have to have an assembly line process, bunch of
right.
people, computers, everything for each one of those lines, each one of those models, all right? So
Yeah.
in so doing, you need a lot of people to work in there. Now, with Nikon, which we didn't talk about, Nikon is laying off 700 people, right? And that I believe
Yeah.
is in Taiwan and Laos, where they're doing the assembly, where they're doing they're actually working.
Yep.
700 workers Nikon is laying off. That is a bunch of people. And I think it
Yep.
came to just over 10% of that workforce. That's a lot, guys. That is
That
a
is a
lot.
lot.
And that goes back to the idea of the more lines that you have, the more boots on the ground that you need to assemble and to keep this stuff going. And it just doesn't work out. It doesn't make sense, especially in an environment that we're in right now. That's like I said, Olympus was pulling out also out of I think it was South Korea. There's no reason to be there anymore. They're not making once again the ROI. So they're pulling out. They're going to allow you to repair your Olympus cameras there for the next 6 years, I think, or 5 years, whatever it is. And then they're gone too. They're taking all those repair sites out too. And then there'll be nothing. And then if you are in that country, you will have to send that camera, the Olympus camera, to another country. Who's going to do that? So you're going to see a lot of these. It's just,
Right.
it's
Right.
hard. It definitely is hard.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I'm hot temp 397. Hopefully,
Yeah, there
got
we go.
that. So some good points about first off the younger people getting into the field, not using old brands, are flying high, doing a fair amount of work, but are unprofessional, uncreative, uneducated. But I don't think that's always the case. So you do have a lot of people using the latest technology, right? That are getting out into the field for the first time. Um, some may or may not actually be doing paid work. There's not as many paid gigs out there as there once was.
Right.
So the people that are getting the paid work are the hustlers. They're the people that know how to sell themselves and to sell their work, to promote their business. Um, it's not even about build it for them. It's not even about building a value proposition for, a sustainable business. It's about selling themselves really well now to get a quick gig. But those types of approaches to business are not sustainable. That they will fail over time if they don't change their business model and really migrate into something more professional and more sustainable. Um, the the competition is great. Joe and I have seen many young photographers come into the space from nothing. Some went to college for art, some didn't, and some people didn't even own their own professional equipment; they just rented it. But they really were good with social media, and they had a creative eye, and they created some great imagery. They posted it on social media and started building a name for themselves. Now some of these people are A-listers in the photo industry without really putting a ton of time in, without, you know, really building their profession, but they're working on their craft. And at the end of the day, you know what? That's what matters. I mean, it's the final image that is delivered to the client. Is it great? Is it something that they wanted? And is it good? Is it a good reflection on you as the provider? Did you do as good of a job as you could do? And if the
Yeah.
answer is yes, then you know what? You met the objective.
Yeah. One of the things that James here said, and just a end line of it says someone who is talented and understands business should be fine. And yeah, James, that should be the case.
Yep.
The problem is once again we get into that good enough mental, and that goes
Yep.
right across the board with all the folks out there, from product to someone that's doing a wedding or any other type of event. I went from wedding work to doing a lot of nonprofit work. And my nonprofit work was just, there was a ton of it. I was the photographer for the American Heart Association, for CODA, for cancer, I can make a whole list, Jewish Children and Family Services. I mean, just a bunch, okay? I shot many, many, many gigs over at Mar-a-Lago, which is now the president's house because I'm 20 minutes away. And a lot of events, American Heart Association. Anyways, today, these companies, these nonprofits, are just like the rest of them, looking for cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, number one. Number two, they're having less events. Whereas we would have, let's say, American Heart, for example, would have like maybe 2 or 3 big events and then a whole bunch of smaller events. Now, all of a sudden, they've consolidated to one. It feels like that same consolidation that we're seeing with conferences and whatnot. Things are consolidating. Like I keep saying, this whole consolidation, consolidation. So even if you are really good, all right, the good enough mental makes it so it doesn't matter because they just want some pictures. Okay. They just want a few
Yeah.
shots. Whereas before it was like, we need something stellar. You know, this mediocrity thing has just become rampant. All right. And folks doing stellar work is just, they're few and far between. And the reason for that is because they're not being requested to do it. And when they do it, do it, do. Yeah, something like that. They're not
To do.
appreciated for doing it, right? They're not
Yeah.
appreciated for doing it. So, it's very hard. The entire industry as a whole, just as it is, it's going back and forth. It's very, very difficult. Someone here, I see Ron said something about 110 film is like a cell phone, and you have 126 film, then APS-C, and so on and so forth. A lot of people don't
Yep.
understand that. All right, a lot of people don't understand that. Now, if you take a photo from your great grandfather that was literally a contact print, some of you know what that is, some of you don't, on a big medium format. So the picture is this big. If you look at it, you could take a loupe, a magnifying glass, and look at it. And the clarity and resolution on your great great grandfather from 1920 is better than the resolution that you see on your phone, which is better than the resolution that you see on a 5D, which is better than most cameras that we see today. People don't get that, right? And it's facts. The problem is we have a day now that we're shooting everything on iPhones, and the iPhones are good enough. And then what happens is later on, okay, we're going to look back at all of the photos that we have of our children, all right, and notice that we can't really print them very well. Or when we blow them up, they're all pixelated or grainy or just simply look like crap, all right? Whereas our grandparents' pictures are going to look better than the pictures that we currently have. Now, do we have more? Yes. God, just tons more than what they have. Tons, loads. We have to have cloud services to hold the tens of thousands of pictures that we have, right? Hundreds of thousands of pictures
photos.
we have. Right. But they all look like crap,
Yeah.
Let's say
Well, that's back to the snapshots.
So exactly. Yeah. And the thing is back to, we have these phones that are doing really good stuff. Now, going forward with that, I've said that medium format is going to, micro four thirds are going to eventually go away the dinosaur. Now, the reason I say that is because it's a smaller sensor. Smaller sensors usually don't do as well as the larger sensors. And I think that what will happen is APS-C will take over the micro four thirds spot. And then full frame will take over the APS-C spot. And then we'll see the medium format that will take over full frame. So eventually I can see, now that we're seeing medium format getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, thanks to Fujifilm, I can see professionals down the road all carrying medium format cameras. And that will distinguish them from everyone else, where everyone else will have full frame, which would be the equivalent to APS-C, or APS-C, which is the equivalent to a micro four thirds, and micro four thirds will be gone because the micro four thirds will be sitting in your phone, guys.
Yep.
That sensor will be in your phone. That's my prediction. I'm most likely wrong, like I'm wrong all the time. But that's what I think is going to happen. But we'll see, we'll see what ends up happening.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see us getting there eventually. The form factor of the phone is so small, so it's going to be a lot of work to be able to fit that larger sensor in there with the optics behind it. But they're going to get there, they're going to get there eventually, and it's going to make it even that much more of a great photographic device. Armando Lopez had commented, it said, if Sony is making a killing with lenses and can cut their camera line, why don't they decrease the camera's prices? I think a lot of it comes down to what the market will bear. It's not a matter of, lowering the price to sell more. They're already selling enough to fit their needs right now. But if they weren't selling any, or very few, because the price was too high, well, then of course they would have to figure out a way to lower the price or create a cheaper model, which is often what we see, right? In the point and shoot days, right? How many point and shoots did Canon and Nikon have? Now they're pretty much non-existent. So it's really what the market will bear. Keep in mind, as far as, professional, full-time professionals, okay? The people who are trying to make a living shooting photographs or shooting video or providing creative services to put food on the table for their family, okay? Those people have less discretionary income to spend in general. on new equipment and the latest and greatest. They'll buy equipment when they need it for a job or when something happens to their old equipment and they need to update. Your hobby photographers, your weekend warriors, the people who have a day job, they maybe have a really good day job, they make really good money, they have more discretionary income, and they're willing to spend a little bit more on their hobby.
Right.
So as long as these manufacturers are able to get the pricing for these cameras, they're going to continue to sell them at that price level. There's no
Absolutely.
reason to lower the cost.
As much as you can get, that's what you get, no matter how you
Yeah.
look at it. It's always been like that. Whatever the market will bear is exactly the price that you need to, market your work or your product at. That's how it always is. Aaron says, would you recommend doing volunteer work to get your name out there? 110%. Absolutely. Absolutely. And even though the nonprofits today are a little bit more difficult to get involved with, unless you're doing stuff for free for them.
Yep.
You might want to get involved with them anyways, because what I've noticed over the decade plus working with nonprofits is that the nonprofits usually cater to a affluent, let's say, clientele, the people that can go to these banquets, go to these functions, and pay $150 a plate, okay, to go there. You will get to meet a lot of people shooting those events that you would never normally meet. I've got a lot of business, a lot of side work, a lot of big gigs for doing so. Now, that wasn't my original idea of doing it. I wanted to give back to my community because I've been here for 20 some years. But the effect of shooting these gigs was definitely positive. So yes, absolutely. If you have the ability to be able to shoot some, maybe you shoot, you tell them that you'll shoot one gig for them for free, and then going forward, maybe half price. So you get some type of stipend that will at least cover your gas, cover some of your time or whatnot. Bear in mind with a lot of these events, a lot of these companies, let's say, a lot of these folks need to go live immediately. Okay. So what happens is, or let's say the next day, a lot of times you'll have to shoot an event and edit it and have it online before the end of the day or by the next day. So keep that in mind. If you have the ability to do that, then fantastic. If not, then you don't want to be there, because it's not an easy thing. It is sometimes very stressful. You have a shot sheet, that you have to get. If you don't get it, you're basically nixed the next time. You have a lot of big individuals that are at these events. Like, I shot one a couple of years ago with Trump. That was before he was the president. And this was for, I believe it was the American Heart Association. And we had just a lot of famous people there. And I remember that even though it was at Mar-a-Lago and it was kind of, hosted by Trump at the time, we had to make sure we had like Bocelli, the singer, Adriano Bocelli, and we had to have this person, that person together for certain things. And if I missed any of those, all right, that need to be in the magazine or need to be in the paper, the following day, pretty much that's going to be the end of it. So yeah, it's very stressful, but it gives you the ability by far to meet just some amazing people that can definitely, let's say, get you even more work or even better work in the future. So definitely, if you can, volunteer. I think it's great for the community and it's great for you also.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael S had a comment about, that a lot of us assume that people care about the equipment that we use, like our clients or potential clients would actually care about the equipment that we use. And yes, in reality, they really don't. At the end of the day, it's about the product that you're delivering to them. They don't really care what you use to get there. The people who care are our colleagues, the people, our competitors. They wonder, like, what gear are you using? Because they see a great picture that you created and they think if they have the same gear, they're going to be able to take the same photo. They're going to be able to make the same quality. People that buy gear care about the gear. and they want to know all about it. The people who are buying the service or the product, they don't care about the gear. I mean, we don't care about the injection molding systems used to create most of the products that we use every day. We just care about the final product that we're using.
Right.
So, you have to definitely look at it as it's not about the gear. It's about what you can do with the gear you have.
Yeah, I think
Um,
that being said, that's a great point. And I think that what happens a lot of times is the newer people that are getting into the industry, it doesn't matter what it is. I don't care if it's photo, if it's video, if it's audio, whatever. When you are new, you're green, your mind says, I need the latest and greatest gear. Okay. And you're constantly buying new gear because you think that it's going to make you a better photographer or a videographer or a musician. And that is simply not the case. The people that have been around for a long time, you'll see that they're shooting older gear. Why? Because they don't need newer gear, because they can create
yeah,
better images than you can with the new gear. Why? Because they know their equipment. Now, James said here, he said, Joe, you're assuming that iPhone shooters understand composition, lighting, post-processing, etc. We need to be more than picture takers and use our skills to help them sell products or services, etc. Absolutely 100% the case. And that's one of the things that I was talking about with real estate. I would shoot real estate and I would make it a point that even though I'm charging a lot of money for these shots, I'm telling them that they will get more money for that property when I'm done shooting it in comparison to them using their iPhone. All right. Or they don't owe me anything. And that is a big statement. That's a lot of time that goes into me doing it. But the images that are done are just gorgeous and they sell the homes. I was selling many multi-million dollar homes on the water. I'm in Palm Beach, okay? Many multi-million dollar homes on the water for literally hundreds of thousands of dollars more than what they had them listed for after they started using my photos in their pieces in there, and they put together like entire like books for these homes because they're expensive homes. It's not something that's just like lit and listed and that's the end of it. All right. And I never ever did not get paid for a real estate shoot. And that was why, because I knew that the images were going to sell, period. And one of them,
yeah,
I think it was about $180,000 to $200,000 more they got for this house. And they ended up throwing me a major bonus for it. And I appreciate it. That made my year. But it's,
nice.
it's that kind of thing that when you know what you're doing with the gear, you can use even older gear and still produce unbelievable work. You don't have to always have the latest and greatest. I get that all the time. Should I upgrade to this? Should I upgrade to that? Stop upgrading, learn the gear that you have. And if you have money that's just sitting in your pocket, put that money on education. And if you don't want to put it into education, which you should be, put it into a lens, because both
Yeah,
education and lens are forever. Camera bodies are like toilet paper and you chuck them every
yeah.
couple of months, every year, every couple of years. All right. So that's my attitude when it comes to upgrading gear.
Yeah, you got to use what you got. I mean, it if you need a piece of equipment for a job that you're doing, some type of specialty equipment, or you want to get into drone photography, well, guess what? Then you need a drone. So you got to buy that equipment. You've got to take the classes. You need to get your license to fly and shoot commercially and stuff like that. So there's a lot to that. So if that's something that you want to get into, then of course you need to make that investment in the gear. If you're looking to do video and your DSLR doesn't shoot video, well, then you may want to think about upgrading.
Right.
But if you're still able to do what what you have been doing with the equipment you have, and you still want to work in that area, in that genre, let's say, honestly, I would not invest in new equipment as far as bodies go. Like you said, Joe, get lenses, educate yourself. Maybe you can create a fantastic photo. Maybe where you need your education is on the business side, you know, learning more of the ins and outs of marketing and sales and what you can do to grow your client base.
Yeah,
Spend your time
absolutely.
there.
No, absolutely. I know. Who was it? Someone said in here, who's going to buy basically a Nikon D6? That there was only going to be a few people that would purchase them anyways. Let me see here. Well, it kind of went by. Anyways, but that is the case. And to your point, when you upgrade because your current gear doesn't do something that you need it to do to either make your life less miserable or to make you more money, all right? Or it's something that you just absolutely love to have and you're just going to buy it just because you want it, okay? But for the most part, it's either going to make you more money or make it easier for you to edit or do something. Very, very important is if the gear does not do something that your client needs it to do, they don't even know, all right? At that
Right.
time, it's probably time to move on. And like you were saying about video, if your gear right now does not do video, but your client is looking for a 15-second ad spot and you want to learn how to do this, well, if your gear does not do video or it doesn't do video well, it's probably time to upgrade if the
Sure.
ROI is right, if the return on investment is right. If you could do that 1 gig, right, make enough to pay for that new piece of gear, let's call it a new camera body that will shoot 4K video, let's just say, all right, then it's
Right.
worth it because you're now buying this brand new gear that you're going to have for another 2, 3, 4 years out, and you have that 1 gig that will pay for it. At that point, it's worth it. But if this is going to be for a 15-second ad spot that instead of being, let's say, $2,500, they want $500, that's all that they have to spend, you're not going to go buy a $6,400, D6, down the road, or you're not going to go buy the
Right.
brand new R5 for 4 or 5 grand. It's just, you're not going to do it. It just does not make sense. Once again, ROI. Are you going to get
Yep.
that return on investment? That is, one of those things that we all have to look at. And if the answer to that is no, then absolutely not. Stick with what you have for as long as you can do what you needed to do, and that's it.
Yep. That's it. That's exactly right. And the manufacturers are going to produce the high-end cameras knowing that they don't expect to sell a ton. Those high-end cameras are not necessarily for new shooters. They're for the people who are out there already using high-end professional Nikon equipment who are in need of an update or who need an additional body. And those are the people that are well invested in Nikon glass, and they're the ones who will pay the $6,500 for the new camera body because they want to stay in the same camp. Your new entry level photographer, your hobby photographer, even somebody who's like super passionate about their hobby, less likely to pay $6,500 for a camera. I mean, it's hard to justify that, right? I mean, unless you just have money to burn. But yeah, Nikon knows that. All the manufacturers know that. They are producing those cameras to keep their current client base happy and give them the high level equipment they need.
Absolutely. Yeah, you have to pander to your current client base because if they
Yep.
jump ship and go somewhere else, it's a problem. Guillermo here, he says digital brought more competition because image quality depends on camera sensor and optics. In the film days, your eye, your exposure were more important factors on image quality. That's absolutely 110% the case. I would love to go across the studio and go and grab my Minolta SRT 102 that I shot for forever, all right, for a long, long time, for a decade before I even went digital. And at that time, film photography, the actual bodies were cheap in comparison to what we have now. You would buy a high-end body for a few $100. You can get a used, like I think I got mine for like $200. Now you can get like some really big medium formats that cost, $1,000 or so, whatever. But they were always egg timers. That's all they are, egg timers.
Yeah.
You set everything up, you throw on your egg timer for the amount of time that it wants to expose, and that's it, all right? What you got, you don't even know what you got until you developed it. Whereas now we don't have these, massive egg timers. We actually have things that are like full-blown computers that are doing everything almost for us. I mean, just look at an EVF in comparison to an OVF. OVF, you're looking through and you're seeing how the world is. The EVF, you're looking through it and you're seeing an augmented reality. And that augmented reality could be exactly what you get when you pull the trigger, Okay, you can throw LUTs
Yep.
on there on that augmented reality. You can shift things, change stuff. Anything that you can think of can be displayed in that EVF, in your eyepiece. And when you pull that trigger, it's exactly what you see, period. That's not the case with an OVF. And it is certainly not a case with the old film cameras, which you saw nothing, right? Besides, you just
Yep.
look through it, and that's the end of it, just like an OVF you would see on a DSLR. So things are just constantly getting better and better and better. But there's a lot of folks that just get stuck in the idea of, I need to be able to see exactly what I'm going to get before I get it, and I need this thing to just do everything for me. The idea of shooting, aperture priority or shutter priority, whatever, in comparison to shooting manual. I tell everyone that they need to shoot manual, all right, so that you know what is going on. Now, it's kind of a misnomer, guys, all right? I've always said shoot manual, but sometimes, shooting like aperture priority is a smarter idea to do. Why? Because in certain situations, you can't change your settings fast enough to be able to capture the image if your lighting is changing extremely quickly, okay?
Yep.
But for the most part, learning how to shoot manual will give you an understanding of what's going on, all right? Your trinity, what's going on in the shot, so that you can, if you are shooting, for example, an aperture priority, you can change things and understand why they're changing or why they're not changing. You see a lot of people that shoot aperture priority, and they're in there and they're changing things around. And they're like, wow, it's not getting any brighter. Well, you hit the end of the limit. Why? Because your aperture is now wide open. You're like, why does it not get brighter? Because you don't understand, right? So I think, there's things to be said, once again, back to education, knowing the equipment inside and out. And whenever I teach any type of photography class, I've always taught people from the very beginning, for the first week, to shoot a piece of film. Shoot a roll or two of film. They have to develop it and then expose it, take a look at it, see what it looks like. Some of the shots will be pure white and some of them will be pure black, but that's okay. That's all right. You're learning, okay? It's not going to be perfect. And then you can go back and say, okay, what was the settings? And make them write it down, all right, what the settings were. Okay, so there's things that, like I said, there's something to be said about learning in manual and then going forward. The same thing with the equipment. Learning equipment, now to what you have, and then moving forward, you'll be able to use the better equipment a lot easier if you know how to use some of the older equipment.
Yeah, that's right. I remember when I was in college, and my photography instructor said to me one day, we would be out, we'd shoot rolls and rolls and rolls of film, and we'd process them in the dark room, and then we'd print them and stuff. And he never really came in the dark room with us. Only every once in a while he'd pop in there. And I remember, in the beginning, when you first do process your first roll of film and it actually comes out, you're pleasantly surprised, right? Because it's a mystery. You don't know what you're going to get. And as time went on, I would be in different lighting situations or different situations where I'm, taking a photograph that I had never done before. Obviously, that's the point of the education, right? So I would come out of the dark room and I'm like, yeah, I'm really surprised. Some of these actually came out pretty well. And I had said that, something to that effect on a couple different occasions. And he looked at me one day and he says, why are you surprised? He said, you're learning, you're educating yourself. And he said, you're becoming more of a professional, and you shouldn't be surprised, because creating consistent results is what a professional does. And I said, I guess you're right.
Absolutely. Aaron says, taking business courses helped me more than photography courses. And that is absolutely the case. It doesn't matter what you do today. If you are a creative, photo, video, music, whatever, taking a business course is going to help you immensely, because everything that we do is business related, okay? We are selling ourselves on a daily basis. And if people trust you in whatever the field is, video, photo, music, whatever, um, art in general, illustration, whatever. If they trust you, they're going to be willing to pay. And
Yep.
the hardest thing that I've found at being, my own person wearing the 15 hats that I do is getting past that and being able to put out a proposal that is really what I'm worth and not feel bad, or somehow displeased with that number and saying, that's really expensive. To be able to say, I am worth that specific amount. So there's a lot to be
Yep.
said when it comes to business, and not only knowing business and how to sell yourself, but also the point to have that understanding and that vision of yourself, that perspective of yourself, that you are worth the amount that you're asking. And I find that a lot of photographers don't have that. And that has pushed the industry on, let's say, a negative keel from a long time ago. A long time ago. And the reason being is because the cost of things slowly went lower and lower and lower and lower because we got a lot more newbies into the market and they don't know what the proper amount is to charge, let's say, for a headshot. And then when they would charge $60 when you're trying to charge 300, whereas it actually costs about 300 because you have to do the shoot, you have to go there, you have to have a consultation, you have to do the edit, you have to print. There's a lot that goes into it. So 300 is probably a good number, not 60. So
Right.
understanding this and then understanding where your place is and viewing yourself as someone that is worth the amount helps out a lot also. So yeah, absolutely. Business, anything like that, any kind of course having to do with business, how to sell yourself, perceive yourself and all that is positive. It's always good. It's as good and as probably even better today than knowing your equipment is business. Business is so, so, so mission critical.
Yeah, yeah. And the fact of the matter is though, you're always going to have somebody new coming into the scene who doesn't know what to charge and who is lowballing on prices just to get work. You're always going to have that. Doesn't matter what industry you're in. The mechanic down the street, the guy who just opened a shop and they're looking to get business in there, their rates are going to be less than maybe the established shop that's been around for 30 years. It's just the way it is. So if you're worried about competing on price, then you're going after the wrong markets. If you are a seasoned photographer, you've been doing this a long time, you understand your value, then you need to go after the clients who also understand the value that you offer, that you bring to the table. And you have to sell them on that. People do business with people who they know, like, and trust. That's
Right.
a famous saying that's been around forever. And the president of our Chamber of Commerce says it at pretty much every meeting. But it's very true. People are not going to be willing to pay your prices if they don't know you, if they don't know anything about you. I mean, they might think you're a scam artist, so why are they going to pay $300 for a headshot? So you have to educate them. You have to do it in a way that you can present the information in a truthful way so they really feel that you're being honest with them and that they can have a trust level with you. And at that point, you will have done your job and you will be able to sell to them at these higher rates.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
On
you know,
price, it's a race to the bottom.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely you can. And it's that point like you said, we buy people, we don't buy products. And
Yep.
that has always been the case. And that's one of the reasons that I've started doing this YouTube channel. Um, I wanted people to know that where the products that I create come from. Okay. And if they trust me, they will most likely want to buy one of my products. So
Yep.
I started out 12 years ago or whatever, creating the focus pyramid, that autofocus lens calibration tool for calibrating lenses for DSLRs. Okay. And that just went over so big because there was a lot of devices like it out there, but they're extremely expensive, these big plastic contraptions. And now the focus pyramid is being used all over the world in schools and just about everywhere. And it goes back to the idea, people didn't know what the focus pyramid was, but then when they started watching the channel, they said, let's go and check this out. This guy seems like he's a nice guy. He doesn't seem like some type of a scam artist or something, Once again, you're not buying the product, you're buying the person. And it is very, very, and that's one of the things that that's why I make the channel the way I do. It's always unbiased. I don't sell a lot of other people's products on here. It's always my own products. So if it's some type of lens cleaning thing, then that's what it is. Or if it's the focus pyramid or PRT for doing photo reference, or now we have microfiber cleaning, we have sensor cleaning with these things, right? We have these for cleaning sensors for it doesn't matter if it's a DSLR or if it's a mirrorless camera, whatever it is, I stand behind every single one of these products. So those are the only ones that I sell for the most part on this channel. And people appreciate it. They appreciate me being unbiased, and they know that I'm a Canon shooter, right? But like I said, I don't hold the flag for Canon. I don't care if they start doing nonsense, then it is what it is. Now, Michael S. here, he said, I shot for a neighbor, and his website for, I guess, some kind of product. Now, the neighbor, I guess, was using a phone or a tablet or a GoPro. He went out, he shot for him in a park. The guy loved the pictures, and the JPEGs were good enough for the guy, and they didn't even bother with the raw images. And that happens a lot today, guys. That happens a lot. We know as photographers that the raw images, right, we can get those and just twist them and pull them and do all kinds of tweaks to them to make them look exceptional. A lot of people, once again, are looking at this good enough thing, whereas these are good enough. Why are they good enough? Because they've been taking pictures with their GoPro. They've been taking pictures with their phone in low light, and they look like crap. They've been taking pictures with their tablet, and it looks god-awful. Side note, I had I'm not going to say who, all right. I had a place that I worked for about 10 years, and I covered all of their events. And I noticed that the coverage started getting less and less and less. I would probably be there about 10 times a year, all right? And then all of a sudden I noticed that I was only there for like the big events. And I'm like, what's going on? I called them up. And they said, well, they were honest. I can't even believe it. Usually they're not. Well, we've been trying out this thing that this guy brought over. It's like this photo booth. It's an iPad, and the person can see themselves, and they push the iPad, and it takes a picture, and then it prints out and all this stuff. And I said, okay, so why do you want me to come and do these now? Is that not, well, no one likes them. They're grainy. They're yellow. They basically look like crap, all right? So, once again, there's things that happen, and then later on people they think that they want to go this route, but then when they see what the images look like out of an iPhone printed or out of this iPad, this photo booth thing, they look awful. So then they come back and they call me. So this is the kind of stuff that happens, and you have to be aware of it, and you need to know how to deal with it. Did I, make it into a big issue? Not really, but going forward, when the next season happened, I raised their rate. Why? Yep. Because now, all right, I see they're going to be using different things instead of me for the most part, and I'm going to be there less. So instead of keeping the rate the same, I raised it. Did they continue using me, or did they go with someone else? They continued using me, right? Because now they can see the difference between a professional shot and an iPad shot, So it is very important to be able to see the difference. And it happens. Sometimes you don't need to show them. Sometimes they show themselves,
Yeah, yeah. And you can look at that increase as the FU price, or you could look at it as the increase in, well, it's a new year and a new service offering. Our pricing structure has changed, and that's just what it is now. And you know what? They're going to pay it. Like you said, they're going to pay it because they see the value.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me just put this out there real quick. All right. And then we'll answer some more questions. Everyone that's watching here, I think there was like 100 plus at one time here. Everyone watching, if you put into the comment area or in the chat window, just put what are you currently shooting? What do you do? Are you a professional? Are you an amateur? Are you a pro-am, somewhere in between? I just kind of want to know your background. Where do you stand? Are you pro? Are you pro-am, somewhere in between? Or are you an amateur? because I think it would be good to get an idea of where everyone is that's currently in the chat here. Like I said, like 100.
Yeah, sure. Sure, and even maybe like what your genre of photography is that you like to shoot, whether it
Yeah,
be
that would be
events, whether it be
fantastic.
weddings, yep, portraits or what have you.
Right.
Commercial work. I see a lot of people comment, but I never see much about commercial work. How many of you in here now are commercial photographers? Do you do tabletop photography? Do you do location product shoots and things like that? That would be
I see Karen says professional headshot and family photographer for 30 years. Wow,
nice.
Karen, that is quite some time. And to do that professionally for that period of time, you're obviously very good at it. And chances are you probably have a good base of clients that continue coming back to you for that type of work. Just as
Sure.
a side note, my wife, like I said, is a licensed cosmetologist, and for many years we did boudoir. And she was always doing the hair and makeup, and I would do all the photography for boudoir. And we would have many women that would want to document themselves every 2 to 3 years. So they would come to us at 30, age 30, then at 33, and then at 36 or whatnot. We were doing it and still do it for quite some time because the women absolutely love to see themselves age, but still in a really positive light. And they felt safe because even though I'm a photographer, I'm male, my wife is actually doing their hair, makeup, and their styling. So it was a really good symbiotic type of relationship. So we still work together. Like I said in the past, I got to have my wife on here one of these days and give
Yeah,
you
that would be
guys a
great.
perspective of a licensed cosmetologist, an MUA, and she's been doing it for many decades also. So it's quite interesting to say the least. But yeah, congratulations, 30 years, professional headshot as well as family portrait. That's amazing. Who else do we have in here? All
Yeah,
right.
professional for 30 architecture and interiors and landscape, some
Guillermo
commercial
there is
work. That's
professional for
great.
30
Yeah.
years. Let's see, shooting
Landscape
mainly architectural,
enthusiast.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Dole Wolfian, photography, landscape, enthusiast photographer. There you go. We have Joe, amateur hack. I kind of
Oh
like that. That's
man.
good. That is good. You know what, though? Amateur hack means that you absolutely love it. All right, no matter what. People
Yep.
that come to channels like mine that are amateurs, they want to learn something. They love it. They don't have any skin, let's say, in the game. They don't have to really worry about it. They don't have to worry about making money. And it is definitely a different perspective, let's say, when you are not making money at doing anything. I don't care. I've shot many album covers for musicians, and I know one of the guys told me, and I thought it was very kind of interesting. He said, I used to absolutely love getting up and work on the next riffs and the next things into these songs that I was creating. And now that I do it professionally and I have deadlines and I have all of this stuff, I don't like it as much, Joe. I don't like it as much. So being an amateur is not a bad thing. It's really
Yep.
quite good, actually.
Yep. Absolutely.
Who else do we have?
Aaron said, I'm a professional photographer and videographer starting my own company. My previous employer slash mentor passed away last year. Condolences on that.
Yeah,
That
it's
is
horrible.
always a tough loss, especially someone who's viewed as a mentor, not
Yeah.
just an employer or a boss. Question for you though, Aaron. Will you be inheriting his clients then? Are you maintaining his business? I mean, you say your own business, but are you bringing his clients to your business name, or are you basically starting from scratch and those people are kind of gone?
Yeah, it's a
That
good
would
point.
be, yeah, that would be something to look at. You want to make sure that his clients know that you're still around, especially if you've been working with him for any time. They probably know you.
And the quality of your work is obviously going to be the same as his, or if not better, or whatever. And they need to know that for 100%. They need to know that for sure. Who else do we have here? Let me see. Adrian. We have. I am always been strictly amateur hobbyist. Fantastic. We have Camera 64 Video Pro. Event photographer for 15 years. Congratulations. You're right there with me. I've been doing that for a long, long time. Events was kind of where I cut my teeth, and I went into commercial work. So I was doing a lot of fashion for quite some time, and then kind of moved on from there into a lot of commercial different things, from real estate to product work. So Michael S., what do we have here? You said he started with the Micro Four Thirds, then went to a Sony APS-C, now with Pentax full frame. Wow, Pentax, nice to see. We don't see a lot of people using Pentax. Pentax is a fantastic line, fantastic line. They are smaller, obviously, like Olympus. Pentax has been having a lot of hard times too. I hope they stay around, but they were probably one of the ones that I would say that, if any of them ended up kind of merging because of the market, let's say, conditions, they would probably be one of them, because they're a little bit smaller. He says secured real estate and landscape, street shooting on and on. Very, very good. Karen, all right. COVID. Oh, I know. Karen over there says, thank you now, due to COVID, I'm temporarily closed. Yeah, I think that's with everyone, me doing what I do. So you guys know my side hustle, all right? You know it. Not only am I a shooter professional, I still am a professional shooter. Video, I do ad spots, video, I do DP work, I do a whole bunch of other stuff. But my side hustles, of course, is my education stuff that I do on the side, but also, of course, is all the products. So I'm doing product invention on a regular basis, sending stuff out. There's a lot of products I have currently in the works that you guys don't know about yet, but once they're available, I'll let you know. So I do a lot of that too. So everyone today, even photographers, videographers, musicians, whatever, a lot of us have side hustles. If you're a creative today and you don't have a side hustle, I want to know who you are, because you're doing something that I'm not doing. All right, I need to figure that out. Because today it's just one of those times that you just almost have to have a side hustle. Who else do we have here? We have Herrigley. We have
well, speaking of your side hustle, I see a cool feature in the YouTube chat, which I didn't even know was available. But you actually have your Life After Adobe T-shirt pinned to the top here. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I'm going to do a video about merch, and I paint, okay, I draw, I'm a creative. Like, it doesn't matter what it is, I'm constantly creating. So I'm starting to make a lot of the illustrations, and then those illustrations I'm going to put on t-shirts, on mugs, and all that stuff. And yes, you can see some merch underneath my channel as of the last couple of days. Some of you have probably seen it, some of you haven't. A lot of you guys have asked how you can help the channel. Of course, giving it a thumbs up and subscribing, telling friends, family, someone that really would care about the content, tell them. That would be fantastic. But a lot of you have said, maybe can you put together like a Patreon or something like that, and we can contribute $5 a month to you or whatever. And I think that's very, very nice. But I always feel bad about that, because it's like, I don't want to just throw up a PayPal link and say, here, send me money, for my work that I do on the channel. So I'm starting to put together these shirts and other merch. And if you guys want to help out the channel, you can go and pick up one of those shirts or mugs, or whatever. Just check them out. I got a whole bunch of stuff in there, and I'm going to continue to add more of these sets, some more of these illustrations that will go on to these shirts. So keep that in mind. And like I said, if you want to help out a little bit, pick up a shirt or whatnot. I set it up so that, unlike what Teespring wanted, they wanted, for example, for a shirt that would be, let's say, $27, $27.99 or whatever, and then I would get, I think, a $15. What I did is, on every product that was that expensive, I cut it all down to my profit on it was $10. That's it. So I lowered every single thing that's in the list to $10. I'm going to go into this a little bit more into a video proper. But just so you know, everything is $10. You buy anything, you know that I will receive $10. The rest goes to Teespring for creating this stuff. So thank you very much, Trevor. Didn't really wasn't going to get into it, but yeah. So
if
you want to pick something,
I got to get a Life After Adobe mug. I'm drinking out of my Batman mug here.
So. Life After Adobe, guys. Life After Adobe. Let me see if I have one of these. This right here. Let me do it. There you go. You see that? That right there, Life After Adobe, cutting the cord, was such a big turning period of time for me, let's say, when this life after Adobe cutting the cord started, when I cut the cord from Adobe and created this series, things just really ramped up. People just absolutely loved it, and I started doing a lot of things about life after Adobe cutting the cord. I did from Photoshop to Illustrator to design to Premiere to whatever, all kinds of different things. And I reviewed a lot of the different products because I deleted Adobe off every single computer from Mac to PC, everything in the entire studio. All gone.
Yep.
Zero. Not even the free Adobe stuff was left, right? Just got rid of everything and started from scratch. And a lot of people said I was absolutely nuts, which I probably was. But yeah, it was very difficult to do. But I figured that if I'm going to talk about this and show people how to do this, I have to do it myself. I can't be like on the back end using Premiere or something. So a lot of the videos that you've been seeing as of late, most of you guys don't know. I'm not using a Premiere alternative like, let's say, DaVinci or something else. And you're like, what? Yeah. No, I've been doing all those edits on my iPad, guys, with LumaFusion.
Yeah. Yeah, and they look great.
And just recently, I was selected as one of like 30 people to do a session for Affinity, which is the Serif company. And I did that entire piece. It's like a 30-minute piece on the product, literally on LumaFusion on my iPad. And people they can't believe it. So yes, you can create using anything. Now, could I use DaVinci Resolve or whatever? Yes, I could have used anything because I have them all on the computer. But I do it almost as a way to challenge myself to be able to, like I said, with old gear, to be able to use an old camera and come up with something that's absolutely stellar. Once again, like I've always said, mediocrity is no longer acceptable. Be stellar or be nothing. Mediocrity is no longer acceptable. Be stellar or be nothing. Matter of fact, I'm going to have some shirts that say that on it because I truly believe that in my heart. Absolutely. I believe that in my heart that, when you create something stellar, people look at it and they can appreciate that. And it's not just that simple mediocre thing that we are just used to seeing these days, right? So I just think it's absolutely important. So
I agree. In the creative space, you want to do the best work you can. That's why we're creatives, right? If we weren't creatives, we'd be doing something else. So I really think that it's our duty to produce the best work we can, the most creative work we can, to acquire the tools necessary to do the work, and in the education to elevate our work. I think it's so important. Owen Warfield had posted a comment. He said, I'm a retired photographer. I would love to offer mentoring, promoting services. I don't want to give away my service. Any idea on how much I should charge? And I think that's great. We need educators that have been in the field for an extensive amount of time who can, share your wisdom from the past on how things were done and what it was like to be a creative back in the day, right? And who is also knowledgeable enough about today's field that you're still current and you can still offer that education. Honestly, I do a lot of stuff with training, being in the photography and the website space and working with clients and stuff. We do a lot of training offerings. In fact, we put together a whole series of videos on WordPress basics for our clients so they can understand how to use the websites that we built for them.
Right.
My suggestion initially would start to build your profile in social. Get out into the world of social, share your photography, share your expertise. If you don't have a website or a blog, look into getting one. Blog about your experiences. People love to hear about that stuff. They love to hear the stories. Share that type of stuff. Once you build a following, then you can start selling your mentorship, because again, people work with people who they know, like, and trust. They need to get to know you. They need to trust in your information, and then they will be willing to do business with you. And creating courses, whether they be video courses or, and however they're delivered. I mean, there's so many great opportunities out there now that you can take advantage of. The
Yeah.
technology is nuts right now.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. There's a couple of questions here. Tiffenbach says, "Gentlemen, do you see family photography coming back after it's safe to meet and and photograph families? How will it be different?" I think yes, I do. I do think that it will be coming back, but the problem that I have with the family photography is that the majority of the people today are buying the latest and greatest iPhones and taking those shots and feeling that once again they're good enough. So the thing that we have to do is show what is different between what you will create in your family photography session and what they can create with their iPhone, all right, or their
Yeah.
little point and shoot. And when you make that connection between the difference between A and B, the iPhone and your professional camera and your professional eye, the creative's eye, I think that it will not be a problem to get people back in the door once this COVID-19 is 100% done. That being said, it's not an easy task. It's not going to be an easy go of it. It's getting harder and harder and harder as time goes by. So once again, I think looking into business and business little hacks, so to speak, would probably be a good thing, especially if you're running some type of studio that's a brick and mortar. Very, very important. Also, we have Mark here. I see a little logo there. It says F8. He says, "I bought Affinity Photo Designer and Publisher. Great software. Haven't missed Adobe at all. Congratulations." He says, "Thank you for your cutting the cord videos." Well, thank you for watching them. And I'm glad, hopefully, you got some service out of it. And yes, I too am using Affinity product. Have I tried everything, out there? Yes, I have. Do I like a lot of it? Yes, I do. It's just Affinity kind of, let's say, check mark more of those boxes, as well as gave me a good way to migrate to their system from using Adobe in the past. Meaning, like, I can bring up like an AI file or a PSD file that I created way back with Adobe software, Photoshop, Illustrator, whatever, and it would bring it in and it would literally do a fantastic job at it. Some things never had to be fixed at all. A few other things might slight quirks here and just minor fixes. So being able to do that, Mark, was really something that helped me decide that Serif or Affinity was the way for me to go. And I ended up going with the Trinity, the Affinity Designer, Photo, as well as Publisher. So it's all three. Very, very good. And a lot of times they have these things like on sale for like 50%, like just crazy. I even forgot what I paid for them. Now remember, they hired me to do the sessions for them, but they didn't give me their software. Keep that in mind. Once again, I've always been unbiased. I bought all their software when I cut the cord. They only hired me because they liked what I was doing with their software. So, and still to this day, I get nothing, zero, if I refer you to go buy an Affinity product. I get zero. There's no affiliation there at all. And I like it that way. I don't have a problem with it. I really don't have a problem with it. So anyways, go ahead. I know you had a couple more questions you wanted to hit on.
Yeah. Joe, Tiffenbach, do you remember Seshu?
Yeah. He's
Connecticut Headshots. We actually met him in New York a couple times at Photo Plus Expo. So yeah, Seshu, that was a great question. And just to add on to, excuse me, hang on, frog in my throat. Never fails. As soon as I go to say something, it's like,
yeah, of course.
I think the headshot, doing family portraits and stuff like that, I do think it'll come back, but it would be really interesting to see what you can do, what you can come up with to kind of incorporate the concept of social distancing into what you're delivering as a product offering. How you can make them feel safe in doing a portrait or doing a family sitting, to where they don't
Right.
feel that you're too close, right? I know a mutual friend, Scott Wyden. I saw he posted something on Facebook a while back that he was doing front porch portrait sessions
Yeah, that's
where
cool.
where people would come out on the front porch. They'd be all dressed up. They bring whatever props they wanted, and he basically would shoot from the sidewalk. You know, Great
Mhm.
concept, and it could be a lot of fun. And that's where you start incorporating your tech, the proper lenses and the lighting and what have you. But I think that could be fun. I think coming up with a new type of offering that meets the comfort level of the clients.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's we have to what is it? Just shuck and jive, right? Change stuff up a little
Always.
bit. We always have to do
Yeah.
it. We just grow as creatives, and we're in it as a community, and that's one of the things I think is fantastic about this channel is that I've always said it from the very beginning. Most of you people are smarter than me. I put out there stuff that, I believe in. Sometimes I get it right, sometimes I get it wrong. If I get it wrong, you guys call me out on it. I think it's fantastic, this back and forth that we have. And I think it is very, very important. And that's one of the reasons why I've always said I can't believe that there's just no trolls that frequent this channel. I go to other channels, other photography channels, other channels in general, and I'll look in the comment area and it's like just troll after troll after troll, negativity.
Yep.
It's just
Yep.
it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. And ever since day one, a year ago, year and a half, however long it's been now that I've been doing this, I never had that. I literally, if I have to delete one person off this channel per month, it's a lot. And that's the God
Right.
honest truth. I feel blessed
Yeah, that's
because of
great.
it. I think that is absolutely fantastic. And that is really just, I just think it's just wonderful. And I never expected that. I really didn't. I just figured I'd be, out here just talking to myself. But instead, I get these just amazing people that just come back with just, God, sometimes I'll read their responses and I'm like, wow, just these are the people why I do what I do, I absolutely
Yep.
love it. Absolutely love it. Let me see what
Well,
else we have here.
from
We
a
have, go ahead.
from a business standpoint, think of it this way. So what you've done is you've provided value at a really great price, free. And
Yeah, kind of,
and
yeah.
you've created content, you've shared your knowledge, your years of experience, you've shared the research, the hours that you spend researching products and software and testing software. You're doing all of this stuff. You're providing great value. So you're attracting a great audience. Nobody can come to your channel and look at your videos and say, oh, this is crap. Why would anybody, want to watch this? It's all quality stuff. And I'm not saying that just because we're friends, but it's because it's true. You create quality and you will find a community and you'll build a customer base. And that I think goes with the the whole business idea of what we're talking about, creative businesses and photography. Build quality in your business and you will get more of it. That's
Yeah,
just
I do believe that. Yeah. And, you know, it always comes to me, it always comes down to perceived value, right? What is
yeah,
the perceived value? The perceived value is not necessarily the value, and it doesn't really need to be. Okay. That's why a photographer can get paid $500 for a wedding, and another photographer will get paid $5,000 for the wedding. It's a perceived value, and that
yeah,
value is that perception based on what that photographer is putting out there. Maybe it's in his work. Maybe it's the leather binding, that he's
yeah,
using. Maybe it's the smell when they actually smell that demo book and they're like, wow, this is like Italian leather. It's just beautiful, right? Whatever
yeah,
that is, perceived value is just mission critical, absolutely mission critical. And that's with all of us, creatives. We have to be able to put that out there. Mark says, who do you think will merge? Surely this will happen with some of the companies. Now, like I was saying earlier, the smaller companies like Pentax and others, they will have a harder go of it right now. We see, Nikon with a 92% drop. What was it in profits and operating profits? Some crazy amount. And it's like, God, I don't know, how do they do it? How they do it is the same way Canon does it, and the rest of them that are larger, because they have a big presence in medical, and a lot of people don't know that. Okay, they make a ton of money in medical, and a smaller portion when it comes to photo or in the actual camera sales. So the same thing with Sony. When the PS5 comes out, how much money do you think they're going to make on that? They're going to make more money on the PS5 than they ever made like on a single mirrorless camera, like the whole lineup. All right. So do they need it? No, they don't. But they almost need those A7s and A9s out there as a way to, let's say, vet which of these sensors are the better of the sensors. Almost like using everyone as a group study, let's say. All right. So by them putting them out there, they're actually doing themselves a favor, because now they have a lot of people buying these cameras, but also testing out these sensors, seeing which are good, which are bad, what's whatever. And then they have like an A lot. No one's supposed to know. They have an A lot, a B lot, a C lot. Okay. The A lot stick with the Sony cameras. The B and the C get sent out to the other camera manufacturers. They will never say that's the case, but that is definitely the case.
Yep.
All right.
There's always
just
a B and a C lot.
You always have, a better sensor or a better chip, better IC, whatever it is. It's how it is. It would be stupid if they did it differently. What are they going to do? They're going to keep the ones that are mediocre for themselves and send out the stellar ones to others? No, that's not how it works. Right. But anyway, so Pentax, back to the question. Pentax, you got, probably, Panasonic. They have a lot of issues going on with the whole L. They're not doing fantastic. Olympus is probably one to look at. Maybe we'll see Olympus, Pentax, Panasonic kind of thing going on. I don't know. I really don't know. But for me, guys, I don't want to see any mergers. Zero. Why is that? Once again, innovation will be stifled. All right. The more you have, the more companies you have that are continuously innovating, we're going to end up being better. We'll have better cameras. As you break it down into smaller and smaller numbers, okay, you end up getting camera manufacturers that could just sit on their laurels, Canon, for years and basically do nothing. All right. We don't want to see that. I mean, I'll tell you for sure, if Sony didn't come around with their A7 line that you, Trevor, and me went to go see over at Photo Plus Expo years and years back when it first came out, right? When it first came out, and we were there as press and we did a whole report on that. And at that time, the Sony A7 was such garbage, all right? They had no lenses. The autofocus was abysmal, and they were saying, buy our camera, and here's an adapter to adapt your L glass from Canon. Okay, that's how they marketed it, guys. That's how they marketed it. I was looking at it, I'm like, this could really be the future if they can actually make their own lenses, not depend on Canon, and get their damn autofocus straight. It was, I can't even tell you how bad it was, okay? But look where they've come. Look where Sony has come. And now we have the A7 III that's out now a year or two, and that thing is still just crushing it when it comes to getting brand new photographers that want full frame cameras, full frame mirrorless cameras into their bloodline, into their product line, into their company. Okay? Very, very important. And now we have G Master glass that they've created that is every bit as good as we see with the Nikkor glass, as well as the L series Canon glass. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. If it wasn't for Sony and doing that, can you imagine how god-awful Canon and Nikon would be right now? All right? Yeah. There would be no R nothing. There would not be no Z nothing. on the Nikon side. There just wouldn't be. There'd be very little innovation because they don't have to do anything. It used to be that Canon and Nikon were two legs on one body. I've always said this. Canon would take a step forward and then Nikon, and then Canon and then Nikon. They were like in cahoots, right? And that was it. All right. Now when Sony kind of just knocked everything on, they were like eating their lunch. Sony is absolutely eating Canon and Nikon's lunch for so many years. Things are changing. As we can see, Canon is really starting to crush it. Nikon needs to do the same thing. So we will see what ends up happening. But like I said, I hope, like the question, round robin, back full circle to Mark's question, do you see them, this consolidation happening? I do, but I don't want to see it happen, right? I don't want to see it happen. So we'll see.
Right. Yeah, I think there's, most of the big players have other products in other spaces. Canon's got a ton of, non-photography related products. Sony's got all their electronics. Panasonic has their electronics. They have other avenues. I think some of the companies that are not doing well with imaging products could simply dial it back to the point of almost non-existence, but still continue as a company. They would just get rid of that branch. And if they don't pick up the pace and really start, raising the bar on their products, that may be what happens. But again, it's the demand, it's the supply and the demand. With the economy the way it is now, people are spending less money, which has absolutely affected the overall sales for all companies. How many can weather the storm? How long can they go and maintain a division, even if the employees are remote workers now? It's going to be difficult, and they're going to have to start making some hard decisions at some point. Nikon, I think, is going to stick around for a while. As we said way early, 100 minutes ago. Nikon will stick around. There may be a consolidation of products, but they are going to stick around, unless they just reach a point where it's no longer financially viable for them to produce imaging equipment, and then they won't. But I think there's enough of a market right now that they will be able to continue with that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they're going to be around for a while. And like I said, their medical is holding them up, and the same thing with Canon and a lot of the other ones. They're side hustles, just like we have side hustles. They have side hustles, and they, many times are what's holding the entire, the bricks together in a lot of these companies. Sony, like I said before, they are the ones that really, really work on ROI. And if they're not seeing the ROI, they will nix stuff really quickly. So, it's always something to, acknowledge when you go with a specific brand, whatever it is. I love what Sony's doing with their lineup. I think they're doing a fantastic job. I'm really interested in seeing their new lines to see how it compares with what's going on. I think that they've fallen behind a little bit. I want to see the brand new, A9s. I want to see some new equipment coming out from them that they've been talking about for a long time. So we'll see what ends up happening with that. But, all in all, I think that, in general, they're all feeling this extreme pressure where people are not buying these cameras. Now, remember, this is pre-COVID-19. If you look at a chart from 2010 to now, it's just a downward spiral. And I reported on this that literally it's a halving of this market, of the industry, a halving every 2 years, literally half, from 100,000 to 50,000, 50 to 20, a halving. So the numbers just don't look good. They really don't good. What they're going to do, it's really hard. It's really hard to know. But anyways, if you guys just started watching now, we're probably getting close to the end of this. Thank you for being here. In that chat window, any questions that you have, we'll probably stay around for maybe another 10 minutes or so, 10, 15 most. put any questions that you have into the chat window right now. Once again, if you're watching a replay, go and enter in the comment area, and one of us will respond to you. Definitely put the comments in there also. I haven't told you guys, but if you have not picked up my ebook, shameless promotion, go pick up my ebook over at jcristina.com/ebook. It is my 10 tips to making sharper images, tack sharp images, something for amateurs as well as professionals. I put that together a couple of years back, and people have really enjoyed it, so I always put it out there as a kind of like a freebie. It is free. So I've been asked to write a couple of other things that aren't free as a way to, if someone doesn't want to buy merchandise, they can pick up one of my ebooks. So I might end up doing that. If you guys have any suggestions going forward also for the channel, put them in the chat window. I always like to hear your input. I think that it's very important for me to know who you guys are. And that's why I asked that if you are just, let's say, new, just got onto the feed right now, put in that chat window who you are, put in there what you do. Are you a professional? Are you a pro-am, or are you an amateur? What do you shoot? This type of thing. And to me, it's very, very important. So I know who I'm talking to on this channel.
Absolutely. Yep. We're pushing almost 2 hours, bro.
Yeah. Like I said, any other questions, throw them in here, and probably within about 10 minutes, we'll go ahead and shut this down, because it's live, and I always like to be able to hang out with everyone for as long as we can. I think that as people kind of come in and out, it's always good to be able to get some new questions in here. But if we don't see anything, then we're going to go ahead and close it up. So, like I said, put in the chat window any kind of questions that you have. And we'll kind of take it from there. Now we got Ron, 35 years, Ron. Wow, pro, and you're shooting Canon.
Good for you.
Yeah, that is a long period of time. Aaron, let me see. Started with a Minolta, the Max 9, nice. I got that Minolta SRT 102. Love it. I absolutely love it. A mount. Yeah, the A90, A99 too. So yeah, that's an example of the A mount, right? We see how things kind of come and go and whatnot. Video, you say you use the X-T3, really great camera. Fujifilm's X-T3 does a great job for video. The X-T4 is fantastic also. I'm really excited to see what Fujifilm does with their H2. See where that goes. Is it going to be as good as I think it will? I really do. I think it's going to be a video beast, but we'll see what ends up happening with that. As we're seeing if anything else comes through here, Trevor, go ahead and, if you could, tell everyone where they can find you, because I know a lot of folks in the last live feed that we did, they wanted you to come back. And so definitely let them know where they can find you. And anything else that you want to kind of throw in there.
Yeah, sure. I think the most relevant place for your community would be currentphotographer.com. That is the website that I was talking about much earlier in our chat. It's a great resource of photography information. It's started in 2009, and I think we have probably over 1,200 articles in there in the Education Center section. So go in there. We talk everything from business to shooting better photos to even WordPress. If you have a WordPress-powered photography website, it's a great resource of information. We've got some really cool stuff in the works for, let's say, the next iteration of Current Photographer. So you definitely want to stay tuned for that. This is some pretty good benefit for the photo community, I think. So check that out, and you can hit me up on Twitter at Trevor Current, and that's probably about it.
Excellent.
All the good places.
I see John just jumped in there. He says it's all about the image and nothing else. Karen says, I enjoyed your perspective. I was concerned with the, yeah, I completely understand it, Karen. The whole idea of, when you are in a specific brand and you don't know where the brand is going, will it disappear tomorrow and you're in there with a ton of glass? I don't think you really have that much to worry about. Nikon's going to be around for a long period of time. I think they should be able to hang in there, even though they've been having it harder than most. You know, they've been having that a lot of difficult years. I think they have enough in their coffers to be around for some time. You know, they really were betting on their D5 when the D5 came out, and the D5 was an amazing camera, and it really held the brand together. From before that, we saw that there was a lot of recalls that really hurt their brand. And I even said that when the D5 comes out, if they just knock it out of the park and they do not have any of the recalls, it's really going to be something amazing. And it was, and it really held the brand together. The Z series, I think, is fantastic. I think it was kind of overly hyped. The Nacht lenses, Nacht being night, those lenses, which are extremely fast glass lenses, I think those were completely overhyped. Manual glass for a crazy amount of money. So that I don't think helped them very much. But I think moving forward with their new Z lineup, I think as long as they keep getting those cameras out there without any type of recalls, any kind of problems, all of the old Nikon shooters are going to continue with the brand. I don't see them jumping ship. I think they will jump ship as eagerly to Sony, as Canon shooters would, because they might like something that Sony's doing, especially when Sony came out with that A7 III full frame under $2,000. That was unbelievable. So, but all in all, I think Nikon is going to be, they're going to be around for some time. I don't think you have anything to worry about there. So anyways, guys, I hope you've gotten something out of this vlog. I want to thank Trevor for hanging out. It's always just, a pleasure to be able to just talk with him. And like I said, having another creative to kind of beat things back and forth, I think is very helpful. And a lot of you guys have enjoyed that too. So that's why I wanted this one to be a little bit longer. So we have Trevor here with us for a longer period of time. I'm sure he's probably wanting to go and eat some lunch or something now. So, yeah. But I want to thank all of you guys for being here. I want to thank you for just, all of the just amazing people that come to the channel and just write these comments that I just have to just take a second to say, I can't believe it sometimes. If you've never been to this channel before, definitely subscribe, hit that little bell icon so that you're notified, but go into the comment area of any video that I've produced. Just look at those comments and read them. And you'll find some of these that are just, paragraphs on paragraph on paragraph, just so amazingly articulate. I love it. And that's one of the reasons why I do this. So once again, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you, Trevor, and many blessings to each and every one of you and your families. Stay safe and stay healthy. Take care, guys.